All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Skill Up Show. Good afternoon. How are you doing this amazing afternoon? What is going on here? All right. How are you doing? I think I either have to change my location or completely change my Anyway, let's forget about that. How is everyone doing? Are you with me? Are you catching the replay? Where are you joining me from? Let me know if you're joining me or if you've joined this stream, and let me know where you are joining this stream from. It's another beautiful Monday afternoon, the time where we come here and have the Skill Up Show. The Skill Up Show is that show where we bring you issues in parenting as it affects the parents of young children and preteens. But today we don't have a typical preteen, topic right today, and that's because in the month of October and November we have decided to focus on helping parents who have toddlers. All right, so we have created solutions and we have created resources and tools for parents with toddler children, right? And that's because we noticed, okay, over the years, working with preteens and young children, we noticed that a lot of the gaps that show up in the lives of our preteens and young children are actually gaps that started from the foundation, yes, when they were infants and toddlers. All right, so during the toddler phase, the gaps that were not closed, the gaps that were not paid attention to in the parenting of our children eventually show up when they are now preteens, okay, and all of that. So we understand that it is best to go for war before the day of war. All right, we understand that if you are going to make success in any phase of your parenting journey, then the foundation is very, very important because the foundation is the beginning of the rest. All right, so today we're looking at how do I help my toddler or preschooler who is struggling in school. All right, so what age usually would we refer to as toddlers? Okay, what age? I mean, what range? I mean, what age are the kids? What range is it that we say, oh, this child is a toddler? All right, so most times you hear the experts say a toddler is a child between 1 and 3, right? But on a general note, we can have most people would categorize toddlers as children after infants, right? Immediately after infancy, so somewhere between 1 and 5, okay, we generally just refer to them as toddlers. So for the purpose of this class, we will be looking at your children within this age range. We're looking at your children, right, your after your infants, all the way to till they're about 5 years old. So that's what we will be looking at during the course of this class. All right, so the topic is how do I help my toddler or preschooler who is struggling in school? All right, so ideally, your child who is between ages 0 and 5 or 1 and 5 should be excited about anything that is exciting. That's the truth. Okay, all things being equal, the child is not going through any is not going through any medical issues at the time. The child doesn't have any challenges at the time. The child is just a little baby and all of that. Your 1 year old should be excited about anything that is exciting. Your 4 year old should be excited about anything that is exciting. All right. So why then do we now have children who go to school probably at age 3, 4, 5, okay, or maybe a bit younger? Why then do we not have them go to school and they begin to, struggle, or they are not cooperating, or they are not having a good time in school, or they are always crying when you say it's time to go to school? I mean, these are children that are easily excited. These are children that is very easy to satisfy. Usually, just give them the things that they need that can excite them in their environment, and they are ready to go. So why then do we not have our 3 year olds go to school and come back and do not want to go to school the next day? Or why do we not have them go to school and refuse to cooperate with their handlers? Okay. Now, I know this is something that is bothersome to parents because Saturday, we had the help. How do I understand my toddler class, right? Okay, so we had that master class, which by the way, if you were not a part of, you want to run and go and catch the replay. Yes, such an amazing session we had there. As I said, calm, deep insight, and packed with solutions. So if you're a parent of a young child, you're a parent of a toddler, you have children in preschool, then that's masterclass is for you. You better hurry and go get that masterclass. I mean, even you can state in the comments, okay, if you like to, catch the replay of the masterclass, and the team will attend to you. All right. So it's something you want to do because it's, as I said, deep insights, calmly delivered, but packed with knowledge and packed with information. All right. So you want to catch that replay. Now, when we're having the question and answer session during that masterclass, these questions kept on coming up. The question about, oh, my child doesn't want to write in school. My child doesn't want to do anything in school. My child's always complaining that he's tired in school and all of that. So what do we do when we have children in school who are struggling? All right. Well, what do we do when you have your child in school who is struggling and doesn't want to be in school, or is constantly crying when it's time to go to school? Now, I know that it's beginning to sound like a cliche that we say that your child, especially for this group of children this age, right? The success of your child is highly dependent on you as a parent. I'm sure at this point you're already, but this child is in school. It's not at home that the child is unhappy. It's in school. It's not at home that the child says he doesn't want to be. It's school. So how is it my concern, right? How is it my concern that the child doesn't want to be in school, or that the child is not responding or is not happy in school? All right, I will come and I will tell you this. But before then, I want you to understand, dear parents, right, that being an informed, involved, and intentional parents in this phase of your child's life. Now, we're still talking about your children between 1 and 5, 0 and 5. All right. Being an informed parent who is involved, who is present, and who is intentional is not just something that is necessary. It is not just giving your child the parenting advantage. It is practically saving your child. Yes, it is blessing your child with a gift that money cannot buy. Because this phase in the child's life is the foundation stage of your child's life. And this stage is really very critical in the life of your child, such that if we don't get it right during this phase, we can make a mess of the rest of your child's life. That is how critical this phase of your child's life is. It's one of the most important phases in their lives. One of the most important phases in their lives. And sadly, this is that phase where most times we have the biggest excuses, or most times you hardly find parents who are present. Okay, are you here? Are you here with us right now? Are you watching the replay of this session? Is everything okay? If you are here, please let us know in the comments that you are here with us. If you are here, please say hello in the comments. Let us know that we have you with us in this session today. All right. If you have a friend who needs to be here, you're watching on YouTube, you have a friend, why don't you go ahead and tag them so that they can be a part of the show? If you are on YouTube and you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, it's a good time to jump in and subscribe to the YouTube channel and be a part of what we are doing here. We are talking about toddlers and how you can help your toddler who is struggling in school. All right. If you're on Facebook, why don't you go ahead and tag a friend who needs to be here so that your friend can join us in this session. All right. So let's go. Now, I have already said, we are saying that your child that is struggling in school has something to do with you. I mean, I'm sure that's what I sounded like when I said your success, or the success of your child, is dependent on you as a parent. Now, let me elaborate on that a little after saying to you that you being informed, you being present, you being intentional during this phase, especially of your child's life, is a blessing that you are giving to your child. It's not just an advantage, it is a blessing that money cannot buy. That's what you're doing to your child or for your child when you are present during this phase of their lives. All right, so yesterday we already, for those of you who were present in the session yesterday, you already heard, right? The facilitator, the other facilitator and I, you must have heard us say over and over again that children actually process information during this first phase of their lives through sensory means. Yes. So your children use their senses to process or to engage their environment, to learn about their environment, to process the information in their environment. So no wonder when you see children, little children, what you see often is them constantly touching things, constantly putting things in their mouth. They're constantly wanting to run, trying to, they want to run, they want to jump, they want to touch, they want to taste, they want to listen. Sometimes you see a 2-year-old, you see even children who are younger, even your 8-month-old, you see them transfixed, listening to a sound, and you're wondering, what is he even understanding? You hear children listening to music, and you are like, oh my goodness, what does he even understand and all of that? This is because during this phase, all of their interactions basically is through sensory means. So their senses are alert and are soaking up everything in their environment during this phase of their lives. Now, it means that anything that would stimulate your child, or anything that will affect or influence your child during this phase of their life has to be sensory oriented, basically. So during this phase of their life, whatever it is that you are going to be doing with the child. Hi, Chidima, how are you doing? Hi, Christabel. So during this phase of their life, whatever it is that you're doing with your child has to involve their senses. Now, this is what happens. At the point that your child is very little, dear parents, now, this is the point where you are really very busy. Now, the only interaction that your child understands, or the only language that your child understands at this point, are the languages that has to do with their senses. So, you cannot be interacting with your child, or you cannot say that you are interacting with your child, or that you are being present, or that you are training, or that you're training or you're teaching that child, if you are not doing activities with the child that involves you applying your senses too. So it means that for you as a parent to prepare your child, for you as the parent to train your child during this phase of their lives, it means that whatever activity you're doing with them will have to do with a lot of touching. We have to do with a lot of listening. We have to do with a lot of talking. We have to do with a lot of tasting. We have to do with their senses, touching and all of that. So what does that tell you? It simply tells you that during this phase of your child's life, you as a parent will be doing the child a service if you are as playful as possible. So you have to be touching and talking and tasting and doing all of these things, because this is how your child is going to learn from that environment. This is how your child is going to interact with that environment. This is how your child is going to understand his environment. So basically, when the child is born and during this first phase of their lives, the kind of orientation that they get from home, the kind of support that they get from home, your presence in their lives, how you interact with them, is what would inform who your child would become, or will be what will inform what your child knows at that time. So we already said, now this is a child that is not doing well in school. I am trying to explain to you how this affects you, or how you affect, how your part in that child not probably relaxing, or that child not doing well in school. Okay, I'm not there yet. I'm going there, so come along with me. So now let's imagine two scenarios. Let's look at two scenarios. So you are that parent that, because you are informed. Remember, I said so. I said At this phase of your child's life, if you are an informed parent, you are an involved parent, right? You are informed, you are involved, and you are intentional. What it means is that you will understand how your child is processing information. You would understand the behavioral milestones in your child's life at this point, and you would understand what your child should know during this phase of their lives. You will understand why your child is doing certain things the way that they are doing these things, because you understand, you are informed, remember. You will also understand the neural connections or the neuroscience of your child's development at this stage. So at this stage, you would understand that this is the stage, right? This same toddler phase is the phase where your child's brain development is in its most rapid state. You will understand that this is the point that your child is making a lot of neural connections, basically, and that where these connections are not being made because there is no stimulation in the environment, most of these cells are going to die. So because you are informed, you know all of these things. This is you, parent A. And so what are you doing because of all this knowledge that you have? You are creating enough stimulation in the child's environment. So you notice that your child is constantly, every time your child is transfixed, when a certain kind of music is playing in the background, your child is transfixed and your child is there like he is listening and is understanding. What do? You create more opportunities for this kind of music, and you try other kind of music that you feel could be soothing to the child's ears, and see how the child responds to this different genre or different kinds of music. Remember, I said, if you're a parent who is informed, you're a parent who is present, and you're a parent who is intentional. It is your intentionality that makes you create extra stimulation in the environment, because you know how this will help in your child's understanding and processing the information in that environment, because you also know that this is how their cognitive abilities and this is how their brain development is going to accelerate, basically. So because you know this and you understand this, now you are able to give your child the advantage. We are still talking about your 0 to 3-year-old probably that is still at home and hasn't gone to school yet. In fact, if you like, leave it to your child that is 0 to 2. Let's assume that you took the child, or you're going to take the child to school at 2, or you're going to take the child to school at 3. All right, so at whatever age, just leave it like that. Now we're talking about the very first phase of the child's life, probably the first 1 year or the first 2 years that the child is with you at home. Now you are parent A and you understand all of these things. You have information, you have knowledge, you are present, and of course you are intentional. So it means that because you understand all of these things that I have talked about, the neuroscience of your child's development, you understand how your child is processing information, you understand what your child uses to process this information, and you understand the importance of your child's environment at this point. Because you have gone ahead to increase their stimulation because you are paying attention. It only takes you being present to actually know these things and to, present to know these things and to apply yourself and support the child effectively. Now, I know, at this point, some of us will start saying, oh, what are you saying? Are you saying I should not leave my job? I should not do anything. I should not come and stay with my child so that whatever. I am not saying anything. I'm just telling you the facts. What you want to do with that fact is absolutely your call, right? I'm telling you the fact. It is what it is, because your child is not going to be one forever. That 1 year the child is at home is not going to be there every year. It's not going to be there forever. Okay, your child is not going to be 1 forever. Your child is not going to be 2 forever. But this is what is going on. Now, during the session yesterday, our other facilitator, Ms. Alu, actually said that research has shown that the best time for your child to actually go to a center, I'm coming to that. So the best time for your child to go to a center or a place where all of these things we're talking about right now are in place is when your child is about 1. What was she trying to say? She was trying to say the best time for your child to start having this level of effective stimulation, okay, the best time for the people around the child to be this intentional is when the child is about 1. So let me ask you, dear parents, do you have this kind of facility that is this intentional? Do you have this kind of facility that understands this? If you have this sort of facility around you that you can take your child to, and you are sure that they are not shortchanging your child, then lucky you, by all means. Now, Mr. Luke runs a center in the UAE where all of these, they use the radio media approach to education, and all of this is the principle that they are working on. And so she can say to you, bring your child to my center at 1 and we will apply all of this. But please, look around you, wherever you are. Do you have this kind of center? So it brings us to that whole, where are you dropping your child? Where are you leaving your child? Where are you taking? So before you take your child to a facility, before you take your child to a daycare, for those of us who have to work and all of that, before you do, then the knowledge that you have still comes to play, because you understand these things, you know these things that we're talking, you are attending these classes that we're talking about these things, and you are availing yourself to learn higher knowledge. See, if you are still on that, in that WhatsApp group where you are constantly arguing and constantly talking about, oh, okay, we'll teach you someone about parenting, and the shortchanging that you're doing to your child there, even I can't even explain it to you. Because there are depths to this knowledge. It's not just about feeding children, giving them a bath, making sure they are healthy, and then leaving them with people to play around. There is much more to this when we're talking about foundation, because the foundation is the beginning of the rest. So higher knowledge is necessary if you're a parent who is raising toddlers, infants. Higher knowledge is very, very key. A lot of us wish we knew these things when we had our first children. We didn't. And so we had to work more, and we're still working extra because we didn't know all of this. Because we didn't know all of this. So if you are a toddler parent today and you have this information, I beg you, see, I don't just joke with them, use them, take them, utilize them, and apply them. You will not be sorry. I know this as I know my name. I promise you, you will not be sorry. These things are principles. It's not guesswork. It will enter. It will work for you. All right. So if you don't have that kind of center, you have this knowledge. It means you can create this in your environment at home. Now, even if, okay, worst case scenario, you cannot afford at all not to, you can't afford to be there at least for the mornings, or, for the period that you have to be at work. And you have to drop them at a center that probably doesn't have all of this, or doesn't understand all of this and all of that. Doesn't understand all of this. You can still have the advantage at home for your child because you know all of this, and you can apply this in your home for the hours that you have your child at home. So what does it mean? It simply means that you are working towards, you're working towards being available early enough to have some time with the child to apply all of this at home. So if the child is not getting it in the center, at least the child is getting it at home, and you can create some sort of a balance. Worst case scenario. But by all means, it is important that we know that an informed parent and a knowledgeable parent that is present and of course is intentional is a blessing to the child. It's a blessing that money cannot buy. Very, very key that we know this. All right. So now let's look at the other scenario, the parent B, that doesn't have any of this knowledge, that doesn't know any of this, that is probably the one that is constantly rolling eyes and arguing, or that is your colleague in the office that is constantly laughing at you and making you feel bad about the fact that you're taking parenting classes, you're constantly reading parenting books, and it's constantly asking you, our parents, who taught them, did they read any book and everything? We are usually, when we make those comments, we're usually blind, and so we don't see how messed up we are. I don't know. I'm sure you're not. I am. All right, loaded with all the traumas. You are fine. I am loaded with all the traumas that I had to heal from, all the traumas that I had to heal from, all the reparenting that I had to do, okay, for myself and all of that. And so this is why I am putting everything within my power, to parent the children right, so that my children do not have to deal with the kind of traumas that I dealt with, and that my children do not have to reparent themselves. When I say trauma, I'm not here talking. I'm not saying I got raped or I got, the trauma from what we perceived as the right kind of parenting or everyday parenting that our parents, did with us. If you know how much of it is responsible for some of the laid back attitude that you have, some of the mindset that you have, the decay we have in our society and all of that, if you know the effect or where the origin is, I'm sure, you will understand what I'm talking about. But a lot of times we don't want to do all of this evaluation. We don't want to think about these things. We just want to think that everything is okay. Anyway, so now parent B doesn't understand any of this, and none of this matters. So parent B has the child, he gives the child a bath in the morning, drops the child with the nanny that is struggling to speak English, or the nanny that is just there, and what is it? Nanny puts the baby to sleep, baby wakes up, nanny feeds the baby and hopes that the baby goes back to sleep in another 30 minutes because it makes life easier for her. She has to do all this other work, she has to wash dishes, she has to, she has all of this work, and it is her prerogative to ensure that the baby is sleeping for 80% of the day. That works for her. So this is a child that should be exploring his environment. This is a child that should be interacting with his environment. This is a child that should be stimulating. The brain cells should be stimulating. There should be stimulation going on in the brain. This is a child that neural connections are supposed to be made. And these neural connections are bit of network glitch on YouTube. All right, so not necessarily because the child wants to sleep, but because the caregivers have decided that the child must be sleeping. And so they will do everything within their power for the child to sleep. So what happens? So these are two scenarios. So what happens? The child now is 3 years old or is 4 years old now. And this is what has characterized their lives. The first one, with the parent who understands and is stimulating the child. So every time the child is listening to music and you see how engrossed, you try another kind of genre of music, another kind of song, and then you see how the child reacts and all of that. Every time the parent is looking for how to create different kinds of sounds so that the child can interact. As the child is doing this, the child's brain is getting brain development. As the child is doing these, neural connections are happening. As the child is doing this, their cognitive ability is developing. All of this is happening at the same time as the child is doing this. One child. Then there's that other child that is sleeping 90 or 80% of the time. And the other times when they are even awake, they are put probably inside a crib, so that the child can just be there and not bother any person. And the child is thrown a couple of plastic toys for the child to just play with, the same plastic toys over and over again. So the child is not interacting with different sources and different things in their environment. So the child's learning is limited. The child is inhibited. The child's learning is, and the child is not allowed to understand, to process information in their environment, because all that it takes for the child to process the information in the environment is being hindered or is being stifled. So now these children go to school. Now these children are in school and we are looking for what could be wrong. All of a sudden, okay, the both of them probably do not want to be in school. Now we're looking at how do we know why the child doesn't want to be in school? Because the first thing we should be doing, or the first thing you should be doing, if your child doesn't like to be in school, the first thing you should be doing is trying to understand why your child does not want to be in school. That's the first thing you want to understand. Why doesn't my child like to be in school? Because if your child says to you, I don't like school, I don't like it in school, I don't want to be in school, the first thing you want to do is understand why. There's always a reason. Okay, do not ever neglect it. This is feedback. Okay, when the child says to you, I don't want to go to school, don't just push it aside. Always try to get to the bottom of it. There is usually something why the child doesn't want to go to school, and it is your responsibility as a parent to find out why. Okay, now remember that for the child who goes to a daycare, and the daycare or goes to a center, and that center has all of these things that we're talking about, remember that it is in all of this also that bonding happens. So for you, a parent who has found that ideal place where enough stimulation is happening, that ideal place where they understand what the child needs, how the child processes information, they understand the child's cognitive, development, they understand the child's social skills, social development, and they're making provision for all of this. Remember also, it is in these processes, the process of playing with the children, that using the child's senses, basically, it's in that process that the child is also bonding with whoever their caregiver is. So if your child has to depend just on the daycare, right? If you are that parent that, oh, thank God, I found the perfect daycare where they have all of these, okay, they are connected and they understand that the child is sensorial at this point, they understand to create all of the stimulation and all of that. Also, thank goodness, I can drop the child there from morning to 6 o'clock. Remember that it is in these sensorial expressions that your child is also connecting with whoever the caregiver is. So if as a parent you don't create that time again, you're not present enough again to be there to interact with the child in the way that the child can interact with the child in the way that the child understands learning. If you're not there to do that, it means that you're also missing an opportunity to bond with your child and to create connection with that child. So either way, you cannot remove yourself if you're a parent of a toddler or a parent of a young person. You can never remove yourself. You must be present. Now, I'm going to, as usual, I always want to give you 5 things, right? So let's look at 5 ways or 5 things that could be the reason why your child is struggling and your child does not enjoy it in school. We're still talking about your we're still talking about your toddler or your preschooler, right, at this point. Thank you very much. I see you, Uche. Hi, Ivy. How you doing? Hello, Chidima again. All right, so let's look at it at this point. Let's look at 5 things, and I'll tell you why it's important. At the beginning, I was saying, yes, your child is in school. It's in school that the child is not happy. The child is okay at home and all of that. And we still said your child's success is dependent on you as a parent. So I'm sure some of you are wondering why it's not me. It's in school that the child is not doing well and all of that. Now, this is where you come in. If your child comes home and your child is not happy, like every time you drop the child in school, the child is crying, the child doesn't want to be in school, the child is constantly saying, I don't like it here and all of that. Now, how do you help the situation, or how do you get to understand the situation as a parent, and how do you get to do something, about it? It is only when you are informed. It is only when you are a present parent, you're an informed parent, and of course you are intentional. That is when it's easy for you to figure out what the issues could be. If you're not an informed parent and you are not an intentional parent, you might just end up chasing all the wrong things, or you might just end up making decisions based on all the wrong things. Yes. I've had issues. I've seen situations in schools or in centers, okay, where I've worked before, and a child will come to school. When the child comes to school and the child doesn't do well this term, the parent will take the child and move the child to another school. I've seen children in year 4 that have moved school 4 times. Yes. in the same city. They didn't have to move, they didn't have to relocate or anything. In one city, you will see a child has moved. The child will start naming the biggest schools in the city they've been in each of these schools. Because every time the child gets into a school, and somehow, because the parent doesn't know what they are looking for, because the parent doesn't know what to look at or to look out for, because the parent is not informed and the parent is not intentional, the parent just goes with just goes with anything that is thrown at them, or just simply what the child has said. So there's a lot more to read, right? So let's look at some of the reasons why your child could actually, not settle in school, or not like it in school, or not do well in school. Remember, we're talking about your toddlers and your preschoolers. Now, one of the reasons why your child may not like it in a school, of course, and this is very important, is that the child may have a caregiver or an individual in that room or in their classroom that the child is not comfortable with, or that does not represent what your child is used to at home, especially if you're a parent who is intentional and you have created all of this environment that we're talking about in your home. All of a sudden, you have brought your child into a center, okay, or all of a sudden your child is in a new class. Okay, take for instance this period. Your child has been in school for say 5 weeks or 6 weeks, and the child is still in that place where the child is not settling, the child is constantly crying when you take them to school and all of that. So at this point, because you have knowledge, then you want to pay attention to, so who is this teacher? And then what is the condition like in his room? What is the teacher like? You want to pay attention to all of those things. So you want to ask your child, especially if the child is, verbal, especially if the child can express themselves. You want to ask the child, why exactly don't you like it in school? Why exactly don't you like it in your class? All right. Ask them questions like that, open-ended questions that will lead to conversations. Chances are it could be that, oh, Miss AB doesn't like me, okay, or this or that. And when you check it, it's probably in the way that that teacher accommodates the child in their room. Children are natural lovers. Yes, children are natural lovers, and they will gravitate to anyone who is warm and loving towards them. So they will. Children will naturally gravitate to a kind person. So if you have a teacher in the class that is constantly nitpicking your child, constantly never catching the child doing right, but is constantly catching the child doing wrong. If you have that kind of teacher, the child may be uncomfortable. If your child is a child that comes from a home where affirmation is big, you're constantly affirming the child, and the child comes to a class where the teacher never sees them. Okay, everybody wants attention. So if your child is in a class where the teacher never gets to see them or acts like they don't see them, it's possible that your child will be uncomfortable in that kind of place, especially if the child comes from a home where love and affection is common and affirmation is common. If a child comes from a home where there is calmness and there is stability, and the child ends up with a teacher that is constantly shouting and screaming and shoving children, there could be a pointer there. If your child doesn't want to go to school, you want to check that and see that could be it. So when your child says, I don't like it in school, I don't want to go to school and all of that, don't just, treat it with a wave of the hand. Always stop. Because you have knowledge as a parent, then you know what to look out for when you go out there to make your inquiries. Don't be too quick to take your children out of one school to the next school to the next school just because. Okay? So you need to pay attention to these things. Okay? So that's number one. Number one could be that your child is, what did I say? It could be that your child is not comfortable in the space because of the adults or whoever it is in that classroom or in that room. So in that case, what do you do if this is the issue? Then it simply means that you have put your child in the wrong hands. So you want to have a conversation with the school, okay, the head of, I mean, the management of the school, okay, and you don't want to be forceful about it. You don't want to go, oh, this teacher is this. No, you don't know. You don't have first-hand information. You just know because you are knowledgeable. You know, I mean, you can guess that, okay, this could be it because, of course, you must have asked questions about the teacher. You must have interacted with the teacher. You probably have visited the school or the class impromptu, okay, and then somehow you have an idea. So what you want to do is you want to ask the school if it's possible to have the child, be in another room for a few days. Let's see if we get the same feedback. So every time you are interacting or every time you are working with your child's school or teacher, please always have it at the back of your mind that you have a relationship here. You have a relationship here, and everyone in this relationship is a triangular relationship. You, the caregivers or teacher or whatever, and then the school, and then of course the child. So at the back of your mind, put it that everyone involved wants the interest of the most important factor in that relationship, the child. So that's why you should do your due diligence as a parent before you drop off your child in a school, to be sure that these people have the same interest as you have, and your child is the most important person to them. Of course, I mean, every child is the most important, factor in the whole equation, and that they share your kind of value, and they will create an environment that is not far from what your child has at home. I'm not saying they should come and have the number of ACs and all that comfort. I'm talking about the basic requirements in that facility that can make any child comfortable in that facility. So you must be sure that this is present. Then you know that your child will easily transition in that space. All right. So you want to be that way. Make sure that you're very objective, okay, in your suggestions and all of that. Act like a confident parent. There is something like that. Being confident as a parent. It is driven by knowledge. Yes, it is driven by knowledge. And that's why we are constantly bringing all of these trainings, all of these courses, to your face, because we want to equip you to be a confident parent. See, a confident parent is that one that nobody tells you more about your child than you know. As I am like this, as I did like this, I would go to school, I would sit down to the PTC meetings and all of that. But I know that in every one of those meetings, there's one person that knows this child through and through, and that's me. So I smile when I go. I mean, when I have parents come around, when I was in the class fully, or when I have friends or people go around, to see their school, their children's teacher, and they are talking to me and they are saying, oh, the teacher knows him very well. The teacher says he's this, is this. And I'm like, you don't know? Like, you don't know? No, I don't know. The teacher said, you've had this child for 10 years. And someone has been with the child for 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, is practically telling you everything about your child. And you are acting like you just got some message from heaven, or you're acting like, science just hits you. Come on, parents, we need to do better. We need to do better. Every time I sit down to a conference, with my children's teacher, I promise you, the conference ends up as I don't know. The conference usually will end up with me being the one telling the teacher about my child. So the conference will usually begin with, oh, okay, this is what we've seen. But usually the conference will end with me telling more to the teacher than the teacher has to say to me. Now me get picking now, me no picking. So at the end of the day, I am the one that is asking the teacher to work with me in this area, Most of the time, we are in tandem because I know. So there's something about being a confident parent. The people who work with you would know. And even the child knows when you're a confident parent, and they know when you're a shaky daddy or a shaky mommy. So parents, that confidence doesn't come from anywhere else. It comes from knowledge. Forget all those things. Forget all these, we reset their brain. I don't take nonsense. It's the way we forget about it. I was having a conversation with someone a few days ago, close person a few days ago. And, we're talking about, basically when children go south and all of that. And the person kept on saying, okay, that the parents are not firm. The parents are not firm. You know how it is. Our parents were firm. I'm like, when you use the word firm like that, okay, you use it in a general way, and it You know what it is when an African parent or an African person says fair? It simply means they don't beat him well. The parents didn't beat him well. The parents just allowed him, they gave him leeway. They were not beating him and stopping every situation. And I was telling the person, that word, that whole firmness is not the word, though, because really, if we're looking at, oh, you scream at the child, you beat the child, and you think that is all that it takes to raise a rounded child, or you think that is what it takes to raise a child that, to raise a child that is wholesome. I mean, you're not skilling the child up, you're not passing down, hey God, you're not passing down ideology, perception, you're not working on the child's mindset, you are not giving the child power. You're not giving the child power, all right, to understand and to use their autonomy to make right choices. You are not teaching the child how to make choices. You're not doing all of this. You are just there waiting for them to make mistakes so that you can shout, you can scream, and you can be firm. Because a lot of times when African parents say firm, that's what they're talking about. Oh, you don't allow them go out. You don't allow them do this. When you do this, you beat them. You reset their brain. This is what firmness is. But no, that's not what it should be. That's not what it should be. If you're not raising, you're not training your children today, you are not skilling them up, you are not allowing them self-direct, make mistakes, correct those mistakes. If you are not allowing them build the right kind of skills, executive functioning skills, you are not teaching them self-direction, teaching them self-control, discipline, and all of that, all that firmness, it's not going to work. It's not going to cut it. All right. So the other thing, the next one is that it could be separation anxiety, right? Yes, it could just be separation anxiety every time because your child is, loves mommy, loves daddy very much. And so anytime that, anytime that you want to go away from the child is, upset and the child is crying and all of that. So it could just be separation anxiety and all of that. So what do? You now begin to put strategies in place and put, tools in place to help you and the child manage that separation anxiety. In the class yesterday, Mr. Alu said one of the things you can do is that you can actually go through a process every day. Okay, so go through some sort of a transition process with the child every day. All right, so I would say to the child, okay, Annie, we're going to go to school in a few minutes. You know how it is. When we get to school, mommy's going to hand you to Auntie Kemi, and you're going to give mommy a big hug, and we'll do our clapping thing. So just have some sort of a routine that you use every time you have to go. Okay, that way your child is able to predict you. Children are highly driven by the children thrive on predictability. They need to be able to predict what is happening around them. So don't do that thing, oh, I'm coming and then you disappear. No, you are just destroying trust and all of that. For the child, it doesn't work. Okay, it's in fact, it's a disservice you're doing to the child. So children thrive more when they can predict, they know what to expect, and all of that. So create a routine that when the child is going through that routine, the child knows, okay, mommy is going to leave very soon and all of that. With time, the child will relax. Okay, and as she said also yesterday, you want to, of course, tell the child, probably use the time and show the child when the clock is at this number and this number, I'm going to be back. Okay, so I'm going to be back at 5 o'clock. Show the child, the child can understand what 5 o'clock is like. The long hand is on 12 and the short hand is on 5. Okay, at that time I'll be back, and then you do everything within your means to try and be there at that time. So what you're doing is you're building trust. You are helping the child, to be in that space where they can predict, and of course you are, as I said, you're building trust. Okay, so that way you can help reduce the anxiety, because that could be one of the reasons why your child is not settling down or why your child is struggling in school. All right. Number 3, it could be that the handlers do not understand how the child learns, how the child wants to be loved, and do not understand who your child is. Yes. So your child could have a personality that is just irritating to the caregiver, or a personality that the caregiver does not understand. Your child could be that child that just wants to be cuddled a bit and allowed to settle in. Your child is that one that could just want to be affirmed. As I said, their love language, and the teacher doesn't know this. And so, because the teacher doesn't know this, and the child doesn't have a way or a means to let the teacher know this, and so the child stays there not having his need met, and the teacher is there not understanding how to meet that need because she doesn't even understand that there is something like that. So that could be one of the reasons why your child is not doing well in that classroom. Okay, what do you do in that case? Help your child transition well, okay, and make sure everybody involved is in the picture. All right, I shared something yesterday in that class. By the way, if you have not watched or caught the replay of that class, you better go catch the replay of that class. As I said, you don't want to miss that class. You don't want to miss the class, and you do not want to miss the workshop that is coming up in another 2 weeks, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Okay, we have a workshop that is coming up. In that workshop, you see how I am giving you these examples and I'm giving you how you can deal with it. In the workshop, we are creating a whole curriculum for this group of children, where you will have what milestones to expect for every phase of their lives, and you have what you have to do during this time of their life. You have the right activities and all of that. It's a complete hand-holding workshop, and that's why when we do our workshop, we take a whole 3 days so that we can take you through the process. When we are done, you can hit your chest and say, okay, with this, I can run in the next 1 year confidently and ensuring that my child is catered for effectively. All right. So the workshop is coming up in 3 weeks' time, and the workshop is for only $4.99. That's what the workshop is for. You need to get yourself into that workshop. When you get into the workshop, you have the replay, of course, of the masterclass that we just had 2 days ago. You can have the replay of that masterclass for a whole year. Okay. Apart from that, you may have to go and watch the masterclass today, because after today, by tomorrow, it is gone. You won't be able to access it again after today. But if you enroll for the masterclass, then you get for the workshop, then you get that masterclass also. All right. You get the masterclass also. Apart from that, you also get a template that you can use to create a curriculum in other areas, right? So we're going to be dealing with a lot of areas, but there will be things and areas where you want to focus or you want to do more on. And so you have a template that you can use to create this on your own and all of that. We have many other bonus that will come. Okay, so you want to jump in and be a part of that workshop. But the best part of the workshop is that we're going to be there with you for 3 days, holding your hand through the process. And at the end, you will know what to do with your child and you will be exceptional. I mean, I promise you, at the end of that workshop, you will be a confident parent. Yes, you'll be confident in raising your preteens. I work with preteens, so I'm always saying preteens. You'll be confident working with your toddlers and your school age children. All right. So the next one is other children. So it may not be the teacher in the class. Okay. It may just be another child in the class. Basically, okay, that is the issue. So your child is with another child in the class who sort of bullies them, who sort of makes them uncomfortable, or that's doing, physically harming your child. All right. So you need to pay attention to that also, because that is enough to want a child not to want to go to school. Okay. I talked about the learning style, love language, and all of that. The parents, the teacher doesn't understand this, and people who care for the child don't understand this. It means that the child will hardly be learning in that space. So no wonder the child doesn't want to write, the child doesn't want to do anything, because the child is not learning in the way that they like to learn or they know how to learn, and nobody is teaching them in that way, or nobody is even helping them to learn in other ways. So they're just forcing the only way or the way that they have done the child's growth. Okay, so there isn't that satisfaction from the activity that the child is doing. So that formula that says activity plus a sense of satisfaction equal to motivation isn't there, because the activity, it doesn't bring a sense of satisfaction. So the child is not motivated. So that could be one of the reasons why your child isn't doing well or doesn't like to be in school or is struggling in school. All right, the last one I'm going to be sharing is stimulation. Okay, there's also, of course, health. It could be that the child has got some learning disability and all of that, or some learning challenges, I like to say. Okay, so the child may just have some learning or learns differently, as Dr. Mavila likes to say it. So it could just be that the child is learns differently. So in that case, there needs to be some diagnosis, or you need to take the child, and all, take the child to someone, to a specialist and all of that. Now that is another thing that we would be doing at the workshop. In the workshop, we will be telling you and showing you all that you need, I mean what you need to see in the child to know if your child needs intervention. All right, so sometimes we don't have an idea, and then we see parents who have children with some of these different, I mean, who learn differently, not understanding this until the child has gone 3, 4, 5 years, and by the time they diagnose the child, it's late. A lot of interventions that could have come in to save the situation become a bit late because the parents did not know what to look out for, and they didn't know what to see, to know that it is time to look or seek for help. And you know how it is, naturally we don't like to seek for help, especially in this part of the world. All right, so this is what we will be showing you at the workshop also. And so the last one is, there isn't enough stimulation. So if the child is coming from the kind of environment that we're talking about, the child is coming from like my environment and all we're talking about here, okay, if you have put all of this in place in the first 1 year, 2 years of the child's life, this is what your child saw at home, this is what your child does at home, this is how stimulating your environment is. Your child is constantly being invited right through the resources in his environment to play and to explore. The child is allowed to exploit their curiosity and all of that. And then all of a sudden, the child finds themselves in a facility. And we can help you with that. Have you seen my new book? I have a new book, Playtime Stories for Champions. It's out for pre-order right now. In Playtime Stories for Champions, we have activities after activities that you can use in your home. Yes, even for people who run centers. These activities are activities that you can apply that will create this stimulation that we're talking about. So we have activities for each of these phases. So the moment your child is in this phase, because you understand the milestone that you will be learning from our course, you understand what milestone to look out for. So the moment you find your child in this space, then you have activities that you can apply or introduce, okay, to help stimulate, stimulate learning at this point. And you know how I do it. If you've read any of my stories are usually, or my books are usually laden with stories. So yes, your child will be reading a story, and in the story is infused with an activity, and you see your child is excited to do these activities because it is infused right in a story that the child is reading. So that's how amazing it is. All of the stories are invitation for your child to play. So the stories invite your child to do an activity that will stimulate them even more. I got plans to help you build these children. So yes, the Playtime Stories for Champions is for children 8 years and below. So if you have a child 0 to 8, then that book is for you. So you better go and pre-order the book, and don't just pre-order that book, because there are 3 other amazing books that your children will need between ages 0 and 10. Okay, so you can go and grab a copy or pre-order the copy at the best price. When you do this, you also get a free journal that is worth 3,500 naira just because you pre-ordered the book. All right, so that's it. So with stimulation, right? So if your child is not highly stimulated, your child gets into a room or a classroom in school that hinders the child doesn't get the kind of freedom that they get at home to exploit their environment, or to explore their environment, or to exploit their curiosity. They go to school, there isn't that environment, or he goes to school and his teacher does not allow him express himself in that way. He's being shunned and stifled and stopped all the time. Chances are the child may not be comfortable in that environment. All of a sudden, rather than play around and use their hands and use their senses, the teacher is forcing them to hold a pen and write, and the teacher is making big of the whole holding pen and write, pencil and write. It's tedious. Yes, it's tedious for your 3-year-olds, for your 4-year-olds to actually hold a pencil and write. So it's a skill that has to be introduced gradually, and the child allowed, to ease into it gradually. But when they go to school and a teacher is so the teacher is so bent, or the teacher is so about writing, 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 as we have in this part of the world, then you will lose your child right there, because the child is thrown off balance and the child begins to struggle in that environment. All right, parents, so this is it. I'm sure you didn't hear me say the child may not understand, you need to get a lesson teacher, because usually at this stage, this is hardly ever the problem. If the foundation is right, if the things that the child needs are in place, then the child doesn't need any teacher or anybody for the child to learn in this phase of their lives. The child is equipped to learn, because during this phase of their lives, the much learning that happens is, as in, the learning that should happen during this phase of the life should be through the child's efforts to stretch themselves. So when you bring in all of these people to come and help them out, you're actually stopping them from stretching themselves. So rather than the teacher coming to help the child, become more, the teacher actually is in the way of the child being able to discover things for themselves and be more on their own. Thank you very much, parents. I am looking and I can't seem to see any questions in the comments. If you're here and you got value from this session, you're catching the replay and you got value from this session, please let us know that you did in the comments. If you'd like to be a part of the workshop that is coming up, then the information will be in the comments section or in the description on YouTube, and you can use that. Okay, you also have that on every one of our platforms, and you can be a part of that program. If you'd like to order my new books, why don't you go ahead and use the link that will be sent here, okay, and in all of our platforms, and you can go ahead and pre-order your book right away. Thank you very much for being a part of this session. I do not take it for granted that you allow me to be a part of your parenting journey. Have a fantastic rest of the day. Bye. Bye. Bye.